Hi guys, and welcome to another video lesson. Today we're going to be looking at an absolute classic, the iconic Amen break. The Amen break comes from the track Amen Brother by the group The Winstons. It was actually the B-side for the track Colour Him Father. It's probably, if not, it might actually be, I'd have to check this, but I'm pretty sure it still is the most sampled drum groove of all time. Something that every drummer really should know. The Amen break is 4 bars long. It's actually only 3 bars because the first 2 bars are repeated. It's the same thing twice. So what we'll do is we'll have a look at each bar a half at a time. And then we'll put those halves together, and then ultimately we'll put all of the bars back together, and that'll give us our complete Amen break. First things first, let's listen to the whole break, all 4 bars, played round a few times, just so you can get a feel for what it is we're looking at today. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on there that makes this drum break sound so unique and make it sound, well, what it is, really, really cool, a really funky 4-bar phrase. There's an awful lot of snare drum and bass drum syncopation. There's also some displacement on the snare. More about that in a minute, we'll come to that in a second. So let's have a look at this first bar. If we look at the first half, we've got 1 and 2, no big deal there, but then we've got the and halfway through. So we've got a syncopated snare drum right in the middle of the bar. I'll play this first half at 70 beats per minute and rest beats 3 and 4 and run it round. Remember, with the syncopation, you can count it 1 and 2 right left. We've talked about this in previous lessons to do with syncopation, this kind of hybrid counting system where we include beats of the bar and sticking patterns to help. It's the actual movement that you're counting there, the right left. You don't have to do that if it doesn't help. Don't worry, if you've got a different way of counting it, that's fine. We're looking to get these notes as even and as precise as we possibly can. I'm going to do this at 70 beats per minute today, but if you need to slow this down, that's absolutely fine. Pause the video and work on it at whatever tempo you need. Come back and join me when you're ready. Here we go. So the second half of this bar has this really tricky 3E and A figure where you've got 3 on the hi-hat, E on the snare, and on the bass drum and the hi-hat, so hand and foot together, and then A just on the bass drum. So you've got the syncopation and the unison notes all happening in the same beat. You might want to just practice those 4 notes on their own really slowly. Right, left, both foot would be our hybrid counting system that we talked about earlier, or 3E and A is the standard way to count it. Beat 4 is exactly the same as beat 2. You've got 4 and A, or 4 right left again. I'll rest the second half of the bar and then I'll come in with beats 3 and 4. Okay, so let's put those 2 halves together and see how the first and second bar of the break sound. So the first half of bar 3 is exactly the same as the first half of bars 1 and 2. Little aside here, as we go through this break, you'll see although it's 4 bars long, it's not made up of 4 separate bars. It's not even made up of 4 individual beats. There's a lot of repetition of the same idea, but just moved around. This is a really good thing to know as it will help us build our own breaks. We can take ideas that we know and replicate them and move them around and put them in different places to create all sorts of different sounding breaks without actually having to learn a lot more material, which is a bonus. So back to the amen break. Here's the first half of the bar again. It's exactly the same as we did earlier, so shouldn't be too much of a problem. Here we go, 70 beats per minute. Now the second half has a 3E and figure which we've seen before in other syncopated lessons, right, left, both, right, left and then our hand and our foot. That's not too bad, it's a little bit easier than what we dealt with in the previous 2 bars because it doesn't have the extra straight after it. But the next bit is where it gets a little bit more tricky. We have what's called a displaced snare drum. Displacement is just a very fancy word for saying moving something forward. So the snare drum would normally go on beat 4, it's now on 4 and. It's been displaced by half a beat. Yes, very fancy, possibly unnecessary way of just saying shove the snare drum half a beat forwards. But there you go, fancy musical way of saying just that. So I'll rest the first half of the bar and I'll play the second half at 70 beats per minute so you can hear what I'm talking about. Right, let's put those 2 halves of the bar together and loop bar 3 round and round so we can get a feel for it. Here it comes. So bar 4 is exactly what I was talking about earlier. It's taking 2 previously looked at ideas from earlier on in the break and shoving them together to create a new bar. You've got the 3E and a bit that was in bars 1 and 2, the right, left, both foot part, and then you've got the displaced snare drum idea again from bar 3. So I'll play just the first half of this bar. Again, we've seen these different bits, these component parts already, but it's worth practicing them on their own because now they've been arranged in a different order. So first half of the bar, round and round at 70 beats per minute. The second half of bar 4 is exactly the same as the second half of bar 3. So we'll play it again just to remind ourselves of how it goes, but there's nothing new here. So let's put all of that together to create bar 4. We'll loop bar 4 round and round so we can get super comfortable with that before we put the whole break together. Here we go. So now I'm going to play the whole break at 70 beats per minute so we can hear how all of the stuff we've just been looking at sounds when we put it all back together and play it in context. Here it is at 100 beats per minute. So this is a big jump. This is 30 beats per minute faster than we've been doing it. No, when I learnt this, I didn't jump from 70 to 100. So no, you don't have to either. This is true for anything we do in the videos. I'm showing you a finished product here. You do not have to go from 70 to 100 straight away. You might need to practice this at 70, then 75, then 80, or 70, 72, 74. Doesn't matter. What we're looking for is getting it correct before we get it fast. But I'm going to show you what it sounds like at 100 so you know what you're aiming for. Here we go. So that's it, the amen break, the most sampled drum groove of all time. Absolutely, definitely worth having in your repertoire as a drummer. As well as just being able to play the amen break because it is a little piece of drumming history, and that's a good enough reason on its own just to learn this, so you could stop now and just do that, that's fine. But it's also a really good example of how you can combine just a few ideas to create a really great sounding drum groove or break or phrase like this one. You don't have to change every single beat of every single bar to make something interesting. In fact, I would advise steering clear of that approach because it will make you very difficult to follow and the groove, well, less groovy to be honest. Have a think back to some of the ideas we've looked at in previous lessons. Syncopated snare, syncopated bass drum, open hi-hat. We've looked at displacement today, that's a new one. There's loads of different things that we've talked about in terms of developing grooves. Pick a handful of ideas and throw them together in a 4-bar phrase. So instead of the amen break, we'll have the, insert your name here, break. Off you go. Okay, so there you have it, the amen break. I hope you enjoyed that, guys. If you've got any questions, please do not hesitate to get in touch. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment down below. I will get back to you as soon as I can. Take care, stay safe, and enjoy your drumming.